Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about Adobe Acrobat Pro. Now, everybody that has a computer probably has a version of Adobe Reader on your computer. That allows you to use any of the forms that we're going to be doing today. Some of you will have a full version of Adobe Reader, or excuse me, Adobe Pro on your machine. That allows you to be able to actually create these online forms with that. But don't worry if you're here today and you don't have the full version of it. There's not an issue with that. You're still going to be able to do the majority of the things that we're doing today when we break up into groups. One of the things with Adobe Reader is it's free. And so I can give that to everybody. Adobe Pro requires a license. So you have to do an annual subscription for those. So what we did is we created a user account for the different programs. For example, Carlin has one for ID, so she's able to do that. And if somebody else within the ID services needs access to that, she can share the username and password for that. Jen has the account for MH and for records, and so again, she has created an account with that. And if somebody else needs to use that, they'll use that account. Ashley and Jeanette have an account that they use, so they'll be able to work with different groups of people with things like creation. With that, HR has an account. I have an account, so I'm always have to do that. So if you don't have the full version of Adobe, don't worry about it. That's actually the last step of what we do today on things. So the things that we're going to be covering today, and hopefully you received an email from me that had a link. That link should take you to this folder. I gave you access. This is on my OneDrive. And what I did is I went through and I shared this OneDrive with you. Hi, Tanner. We have a spot for you.
My head will glare at people's eyes. Something's over here.
Or if you find a spot, you can always join in on one side too. We weren't sure how many people you have. Sure. Yeah. Just unlock the two front wheels there. You move wherever you like. But anyhow, so what I did is I went into my OneDrive. I highlighted the folder that I wanted to share with you guys, and I did a share. Now the share that I did is only set up for you for to the end of this month, just because you don't need access to it after that. So anything that you have here, feel free to copy down to your own OneDrive if you want to use it for later on for practice things. Again, it's not really necessary for you, but if you want it, you got up to the 30th that I shared this with you. So pull off from it whatever you'd like to. Things that we're going to be covering during this session here. We're going to talk about why do we use Adobe Forms. Everybody here is used to using Word or Excel, and we've created a lot of forms in that. So we're going to talk about why we use Adobe Forms. We'll talk about how to prepare the forms in Word. That's the starting point. Not everybody in here has access to Word. You really have to create it first before we import it into Adobe, so we'll be talking about that. We'll get into how to create a form in Adobe Acrobat DC from Word using auto creation, then how to do it manually. We'll talk about how to edit form fields, talk about a way of saving the form so that when you create it and you pass it out to your team, you don't want them to be able to go in and edit it and make changes to that form, and all of a sudden the information that's coming back isn't what you intended it to gather. So we'll talk about how you can save it. A lot of you will want to set up a way that they can submit the form. So rather than having to tell them, okay, go in and open it up, fill it up, then save it to your computer, then go into your Outlook and open up a new email and then attach it and then send it to me. We'll create a submit button. Take care of that for you. And the last thing is gathering information on forms. How many people have forms that you just gather information on and you never do anything with information? Sometimes I feel like that, yes. But for the most part, the information that we have on an individual form, we need to put together with the information that we're getting from several other people. And so we want to gather that together easily without having to say, okay, print this form off that somebody sent me. Now, open up an Excel spreadsheet and write down all their answers across it. Then go to the next person, open up their form, and then manually write down all the information. We don't want to do that. So we want to find a way to get that information for you much easier. So we're going to talk about that today. So what Adobe DC Pro is not. Adobe DC is not a word processor. You're not going to start creating a form in Adobe. Even though you can make it look like a form with it, and if you got really good, you could do a pretty good job with it. It's not meant to be a word processor, so typing all the words into it. Really, Adobe's not meant. It's meant for adding those fields in after the form part of created. That's why we're going to start off with Word.
Yeah.
Somebody told us here, so let's just. Hey, Ellie, I'm going to mute you here for a little bit. We're hearing you a little bit there, so if you have any questions, go ahead and just unmute yourself from there. Okay. So things that you're going to need for the training session today. Hopefully you received that email that has all of the files here. And in this here, you'll see that I gave you a copy of the handout. So you have an electronic version of it. So write all your notes that you want to on this, but if you need to print it off for some other reason, you've got access to it. I included 3 sample files in here. So we're going to pretend, and please don't send this out. Ashton will hate you. We're pretending that we're going to put out the employee holiday party RSVP. So that people can RSVP whether or not they're coming to the annual Christmas party, which is a real thing. But there's menu choices as far as what you want to eat. So don't send it to people because we don't want them to all of a sudden think that they could have prime rib. So, okay? And then there's a folder here called responses. And in this one here, you'll see that there is responses that I've received back from people that I sent the holiday party up to. So you see Jack Frost, Mary Claus, Peter Rabbit, Santa Claus, they all sent back the responses. So you'll see those in here. Did everybody who has the full version of Adobe, were you able to log in and get it set up on your computer?
Yes. I logged in, I didn't set it up.
Okay, we'll have to get it, before we finish the second part of it, we'll have to download it. It just takes a couple minutes for that to do that, so we can do that. The other thing I asked is, if your department had forms that you want to work on today after we make it through the first part of the class, I encourage you to bring along some copies of some forms that we can work on. So that way, if you have questions as groups, we can kind of bat things back and forth how the best way is to complete your forms and stuff. Like I said, I'm going to do a practice run. Hopefully, I'll take about half of the course or half the amount of time today to go over how to create the forms, and I want the last half of it to be able to be for you guys to sit, gather together as groups, talk about forms that you need to do, and figure out what's the best way to move forward with those on it. Down at the bottom of the first page here, additional resources. I'll confess something. I don't know everything, and so I use YouTube a lot to figuring out how to do things. So in preparation for this class, one of the things I wanted to see was, what have other people taught. So the very first link that you see here is fillable forms from Word to Adobe Acrobat. I use that template that they go through here as far as what they taught a lot. So if you missed something in this class here and you want to see a better teacher teach it, click on that first link. So that will go through it. Again, it's not identical to it, but I kind of followed what she did in it. There's some other links that I put in here, how to create digital signatures, and then how to just sign a PDF. There's a difference between that. Did you know that all of you right now are fully capable of pulling up a PDF file and putting your signature on it? So there's just a little field on it. You don't have to have the full version of it. Just in Reader, you can go through and say, put my signature right here. A digital signature is something different. That's more secure with it. So we'll talk about the differences with that. But there's a couple links for that. And then how to make a PDF submittable. So remember that we were talking about, rather than having to have somebody save it, open Word or open Outlook, attach it, and then send it to the right person, we're talking about just creating a submit form. Any questions going into it? Okay. Just as a quick reminder, I'm just reminding myself because my phone is ringing here. Just if you could put your phones on silent. If you need to take calls, feel free to just step out and take the calls, but just put it on silent. That way, it's not going to ring through on things. For those people that are viewing this remotely, when you have a question, just make sure to unmute yourself on that. I think I got most of you muted for right now, just so we didn't have any feedback going on with it. So sometimes if you're sitting there, and especially if you're using a laptop and you're typing away, we get to hear what you're typing over the speakers here, so that's why we just mute it on that. So if you have a question, just make sure you unmute yourself and grab my attention. Okay. So why do we use Adobe Forms? Some of this I'm just going to kind of read to you and then kind of go off on it a bit. But Adobe allows a user to view a form even if they don't have the program the document was created in. I'm going to use BCMs and mobile monitoring a lot today, for example. For the BCMs that have the newer Lenovo's, there's not a local version of Word on the machines. We don't have licensing for people to have local versions of Word on the spot right back there. And so if they need to complete a form, the only way currently that they have, if the form was created in Word, is they have to hook up their hotspot. So if they're out at a consumer's house, they have to connect to their hotspot, go up to Office 365 and use that form online. What does that use that we're really trying to watch?
Data.
Data. That terrible word, data. So we don't want to have people have to be connected online in order to complete a form. So by using Adobe, the reader is completely free. I don't have to pay people to pay for licensing for it. And it runs locally on the machine, which means if I have a copy of the template, again for the BCMs, let's say the encounter form, we save a copy of that template to their laptop. Then throughout the day, they can just open up one, complete the form, save it. At the end of the day, when they're either home or they go to Starbucks, or they come back here to the office, and they have an internet connection, rather than having to use their phone to connect with it, then they can sync up their forms and they can submit them all the time on that way. That saves them from having to use data. Again, we talked about it being a free download. It doesn't require them to be connected to the forms. You can open up an Adobe form in any browser window. Usually IE and Chrome works fine, so we'll actually practice that today. That's one of the things when you're creating a form, because if you have a full version of Adobe, it will look one way to you, but you need to test it to see what the typical person will see. It's really to just open up IE or Chrome, put a copy of that into there, and we'll practice this. And then you get to see what people outside of here that don't have Adobe would see. Does the form still look good? Does it work? When you're getting ready to create a form, you have to think about how is it going to be used. So is this a form that is basically nothing more than a piece of paper that somebody is going to pull up a copy of it, print it off, and then fill it out by hand and walk over and say, records, here's my information. So that's one way that people do things. So the print and fill. What works best is if I can fill it out on my computer and send it. I never have to even print it off. Okay. That is the best way for using it if we can. Now, there is a hybrid to where I open it up, I fill it out online, but then I still have to print it because I have to hand Jen a printed copy of that. When we have to do that, there's certain form fields that we have to stay clear of with it. Most of the time, those are ones to where we have combo boxes where I can do multiple selections on it, or if we have a text box that scrolls, we have that scroll bar on it. So even though online, we can scroll forever and see all the information that doesn't show in the box, when you print it, all you see is the information that shows in the box. So if you had to print it off, you're going to miss all the stuff that's beyond the scroll bar. If you use a combo box, you'll see the first answer, but you won't see the rest of the answers on it. So you have to determine how is this form going to be used. So if you can design it so that it can be done completely online, it's going to be easier for everybody involved with it. The nice thing with that is gathering that data, putting all that information together, then you can export it by using Adobe with it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you upload to the Adobe form an attachment?
So if you have an Adobe form, attaching another file to it. I haven't tried that yet. Something we can certainly do. Yes, ma'am.
Jonathan, is most of this, does this just apply to forms we create, or does this also apply to external forms? Like your example is a lot of folks for a case manager, they use forms like from Social Security, things like that.
Mm-hmm. There are ways of being able to do that. So let's say we had a form that we don't own. We have a PDF copy of it. I can take that form and then insert fields where I want people to type, so that when it's printed off or when it's saved, it looks like the form and somebody had taken the typewriter and typed everything in. So yes, we can do that with that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be things that we've created. There it goes back to how is it going to be used with it. If it's something that where we have to resubmit to them, you know, we can save it as the PDF, send it to them. It looks like a PDF that they sent us to start with. We're fine with it, as long as we don't use the combo boxes, we don't use scroll bars within the text on it. So if there's somebody that's like, no, you absolutely can't do that, then our hands are tied with it. Let's talk about fields in Adobe. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually open up a copy of Adobe DC. But this is the full version of it. Oh, so I got a copy of it open. So if I'm looking at things here across the top, the thing that makes the difference between Adobe Pro and the Reader is this, Tools. So when I click on the Tools, my toolbar will open up here on the side. But you'll see that I have different tools that are available for me. For example, Prepare Form. This is what I can use to actually go in through and create a form, adding in those form fields with it. So as we're talking about things today, you'll see that when we're going through it, when you click on Prepare Form, you're going to get this little toolbar up here. So these are the different types of fields that we have. We have a text field, so if we just want a person's name, type your name in here. That would be a text field. A checkbox. Are you going to come to the Christmas party? Check yes. A radial button. A radial button is if you have a choice list. Okay, so do you want prime rib? Do you want chicken parmesan? Do you want these different things? But only choose one. We use radial buttons for that. That way we can group them together so that they can only make one choice. We have choice lists. Okay, choose using a drop-down list of different things. So we can do that. Combo box allows us to do multiple selections of it. So even though the choice list and the radial buttons work very similar, a radial button, you actually see on the form all your different choices, and then there's a little circle next to it, and you just click on it. A choice list is there's one box, you click on it, select on it, and then when you're done, that's all you see on it. So difference with that. Combo box allows you to do the multiple selections with that. Buttons, we're going to be talking about how to add in a button. For example, click on this button to submit the form. There's image files. So if we needed to attach, for example, and Carolyn, I don't know if this may be what you're talking about with it, if you need to upload a picture or something. So I'm creating some kind of form. I said, okay, I need you to submit your current information. You know, I want you to give me your name, your address, your phone number, all your contact information, and give me a recent picture of yourself. Then I could do an image file there and say upload into that. Date fields we can put in, and with date we can do date time with that. Signature fields, again, the difference here, if we're using the digital signature, that is a secure signature field with them. What that means is this: when somebody signs that form, it locks it. So we know that no other editing is going to happen to that form once it's been signed. Difference than me just going up through here and saying, I want to add my signature to a field. So if I were to come here and click on fill and sign on something, I could come up here to this little sign button. Say, okay, I'm going to sign. I just had already created mine here. I want to put my signature right here. So that's one way of doing it. Now, how secure is that? Does it really mean that something hasn't changed after I've done that? Not really. Some of the forms that we have to complete, for example, if we're doing something with the state, it just needs to have our signature on it. So we can use that to complete with it. A digital signature, on the other hand, is encrypted signature on it. So you have to actually create a file. Once you sign it, then it locks that form. You can't edit that form after that. That way we know this is when somebody sent something. Let's say an encounter form had to be digitally signed in order for the state to say, you know, this is allowable. Then we know that once somebody digitally signed it, so they put their signature on it there, and I'll show you that here in a little bit, that the form has been locked. No other editing has been done to that form since that time. Okay? Let me get myself back out of this toolbar here. Okay, so where do we begin? Remember how I told you Adobe is not a word processor? So we don't want to start with a blank form in Adobe that has nothing on it, and then we're going to create text fields all over. Not saying you can't create something that way, but it will be a huge pain if you did. So we're going to start in Word. So on your computers, if you have your computers with you, if you want to open that folder that I sent you, you'll see in it that I gave you 3 different Word files. So we're going to open up the first one here that says Employee Holiday Party RSVP Plain. So if I open this up, so what I have done is I've gone into Word and I created the RSVP for our annual Christmas party. You notice I put some graphics in, so I grabbed the thing, I put it. Nia, did you create that graphic here, the jingle and all that stuff there? So I stole that from her and I put it on here, and then I put some information on it. So I typed in the employee holiday party RSVP sample, just in case somebody decides to send it out to everybody, and then Ashley gets really mad at me. And then I designed the wording that I want on here. One, I need to know, are you planning on attending? So I have this little thing here. It says, I'm planning on attending. I want a checkbox to be in front of that. So I don't want them to have to type anything. I want them just to click on a checkbox. I want their name. I want their email address. And then I want them to choose whether they want prime rib, baked Alaskan salmon, creamy Cajun chicken pasta, vegetarian lasagna. And then I want to give them the opportunity to say that they have any special requirements, you know, low sodium or things like that. And then I want them to send it to Ashley. So right now, I can take this form, I could hit print and send it to everybody, and they could take that piece of paper, fill it out by hand, and then when they're done, they walk over to Ashley and say, here you go, Ashley.
Thank you.
And then Ashley then reads all that information, and she's always good at this. So she starts up with an Excel spreadsheet, and she writes across there, yes, Jonathan Price is going to come. His email address is jprice@lakeshorecs.org, and he wants prime rib. However, special requirement, he wants to make sure that they don't use any steak seasoning on the steak. Do the prime rib. Not have mine come out with a piece of meat that everybody else is getting. And so she has to record all that information, and then she takes that, she checks it off, and then when she's done, she grabs Jen Demers, and Jen is putting her information on it, and yes, she's coming, and she wants the vegetarian lasagna. Special requirements, I do not want to sit anywhere near Jonathan Price. And so she records all of that information, then she goes on to the next person. So using it just this way, it works. The old way that we've always done things. But this is the starting point where we go here. So that's why I say everybody in this room has the capability of creating forms. Because this is where you have to start. What do you want it to look like? Okay? Oh, my notes are on here. So we're on page 3 for those that are following along within there. Now, if we want this to be something that somebody can just pull up online, complete, and send to Ashley, that then she can import from all of it into one large Excel spreadsheet, the easiest way of making this happen is to insert a few fields to make the form auto-create for you. So I'm going to close this document up through, and then finding your computers, you open up the one that says RSVP auto convert. You'll see that I've added some shapes. Excuse me, not some shapes. I've added some fields into here. You'll see that I put a box in front of the I plan on attending. Anytime that Adobe sees this box, it will convert it to a checkbox. Anytime it sees text followed by an underline, it says, oh, they must want a text field there. And it will create that text field for you. Anytime it sees circles, yes ma'am.
Hi, this is telling me I don't have access. The service is too busy.
Yeah, I have that too.
I don't know.
Must be too many people hitting the file at once, possibly.
I had an issue with the last document, and I just kept retrying, and eventually it'll give you access.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Jonathan?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
also, am I supposed to be able to see a box? Mine just says symbol. Mine too.
Some of you that don't have Word on your, that's why it's not. You don't have a full version of Word on it. You open it up in Office 365 online. You can do it.
I'm on Word online, but it doesn't.
It still didn't let you?
Yeah, I do. Intend, I have Word on my computer, but it automatically opened it up on Word online and it says symbol.
Okay. I'll show you what it should be doing with it on it.
So Jonathan, when we're creating a form, those are the things we need to have in your mind.
Yes.
So put that line in there so that Adobe will read it as text box.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Reminder thing.
Yeah. So you see here I have the menu choices. I went through and recreated this one a few different times here, but so I did special requirements. I put just a line on it for there. So here's some things to think about with this. And if you're following along on page 3 here, the way that I was able to add in these fields here. So you can't just draw a shape to have it auto-convert. You have to be very specific with this. So if you go, let's say for example, let me take this out of here. Checkbox. In order to get that checkbox here, I'm going to go up through here. I'm going to click on Insert. And then I'm going to come over here to Symbol. I'm gonna click on symbol.
Can you
I'm gonna
close
come down
Callie's
here.
box, Jonathan?
Pardon?
Are you able to close Callie's box? We can see what you're doing up there?
Move it down.
Yeah, move it down, yeah.
It's on the other computer there.
Oh.
That's right. Let me do this here. So I'm going to click on symbols, and more symbols. Did you see it there? And then when it says for font, you have to choose wingdings within here. When you choose wingdings, you'll see there's the little square box. Go down a little bit further, and there you'll see the circle that you use for radio buttons on it. Okay? So then I added in a checkbox. Okay?
So you only have that option if you have the full version.
It looks like, I'll have to look into online to see why that doesn't pull wingdings on it. But, we have to look into that. Again, that's one of the nice things with, if we had used this as Word and sent it out to all your BCMs and things like that, when they opened it, they would have got the thing that said symbol, which doesn't do them any good. So for creation here, yeah, probably a full version of Word for those people that are doing that. For name, all I did is go through here and then I just clicked on the underline button and added in underlines within that. And then same thing here, I inserted symbols for this. So these are the three primary things that we're going to look at today with it. We're keeping our forms kind of introductory with it. So I've got this form that I've created. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to have you just watch here for a second.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're in Word, but because it's Word online, you're inserting symbols and lines, it just automatically transforms it into text box and check mark boxes?
Word doesn't, but Adobe will.
So even though it's on Word online, you still want to kind of upload it?
Yep.
Okay.
So all we've done so far is we created that basic template. So if we were to print it off, this is what it would look like.
Okay.
And so we wanted to get to that point, and that's why I say not everybody needs full version of Adobe from here. It's getting that form laid out. You know, how do you want it set up? What do you want it to say? Doing all that stuff to actually create that form. As I say, some of you already have forms that you've created. It's just that right now you're printing them off, handing them to somebody. Somebody fills them out by hand and then walks out and hands them to Jen and says, okay, do with it what you need to do with it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So we've created a form here. So again, just so that you see, I've got this one. And I've got the check boxes, radio buttons, and underscores with it. So I'm going to close this up. I'm actually going to close Adobe up for a second. So I want to take you through the process of it. So what I'm going to do is I've created that Word document. I know where I've saved it. I'm going to open up the full version, so Adobe Acrobat DC. You have to have one of those full versions of it. So currently right now in the room, Ashley has a copy, Jen has a copy, Carlin has a copy. But again, within the departments, you know, we can share those user accounts with other ones that need to do that. Again, let me show you what's involved with the step and show you why not everybody necessarily needs to have a copy of this. I'm going to go into Adobe DC. Oh, I'm sorry, I got it out of order here. The other way of doing things, if I want to manually add the fields into Adobe, not have it auto-create, come down here to this one here, Employee Party, RSVP Shapes. I got ahead of myself. So I'm on the bottom of page 3. What's that?
You kind of discouraged us from wanting to do it this way. You know, this would be a more difficult way, right?
No, not necessarily. Just a couple added steps. It depends on what you want your form to look like. So you'll see here that I changed the shapes of things. I want it to be this nice kind of blue rounded area through here within there. So I wanted it to look a little different. We can still utilize this. It's just that Adobe, when they look at these shapes, and again, the way that I did this is to insert a shape. And then I chose shapes that I wanted to use on my form. And then I modified those shapes, and I copied and pasted them.
So kind of like Mia was saying, so it turns all of these shapes into fields? Because these are shapes we could use in Word for years, you just stick them in there.
Right. It won't auto-convert, but we can overlay this into here. So we'll get into that.
So it's going to turn that circle into a radio.
If we use these symbols, yes. If we're using shapes, no, it won't auto-convert. I just wanted to show you this one here. So in this case here, I can put a box that I want to put a checkbox in. I want to put my name and my email address within here. Notice I did not put circles within shapes one. The reason for that is this. If you use a symbol for the circle on it, when we actually go into Adobe Forms to create it, to get the circle to overlay the shape that we've created there, you'll be working for hours trying to get it to overlay and stuff like that. You can't turn off the border on the circles, on radio buttons on it. So it's just best to save you the hassle, and we'll just add those ones in. Again, we're just creating what do we want it to look like coming out of here. So this one here is going to have a nice little blue rounded box. That looks a little bit neater. Again, something that we can obviously use very well.
I'm guessing it's also the word, although I have the word online, it is coming up through that. It looks totally like all those, the whole thing's matched on my version here. Is it the same thing?
The online. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, okay.
I think that was similar, I was just confirming, so if I'm on Word on my computer, it looks the same. But if I'm using Word online, I don't have, so anybody who doesn't have Word except online, wouldn't be able to do this?
Wouldn't be able to create it this same way.
Okay.
Again, the goal is to make sure that those people that are forms creators. So not everybody within your department is going to create forms. We want to create forms that they can use, and we know that they all can pull it up once we're done with it and we convert it to Adobe. But those people that actually have to create the form, we want to make sure that those people do have the tools at their fingertips that they need. So they need a full version of Word to be able to do that.
And Jonathan, sorry, and then you're just gonna identify how it can convert onto Word Online, is that what you're saying? Since we look at it, it looks like you created it, gave it to us, but it's not pulling up correctly because we just have Word Online.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so this will be when we go through later on, we'll manually add fields. Again, I don't want to scare you away from doing it this way because it's not that difficult. So let me show you the difference between them. So I have those two different things. So here's how I'm going to convert. So I started off creating the form in Word. If you did it from Excel, you could also do it from within there. If you have some that are in Excel, Word looks a little bit easier. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down through, if you're just watching here, I'm going to go to Adobe Acrobat DC, full version of it. And again, I'm on page 4 right now. How long do you think it should take us to take that Word document that we set up for auto-convert and have it ready for people to use that only have Adobe? What's your guesstimate? 15 minutes, a minute, half a day. Maybe we'll get to it by the next week. Let's do a test here. Okay. So steps: file, create. Again, there's different ways to do it here. We can do it PDF from file, PDF from scanner, PDF from web page. Create form. Opens up this nice little template for you and asks you some things. Are you scanning the document? So if you only have a piece of paper a form from the state, and you have a scanner, you can scan it from there. We're going to select a file. Notice here it's asking me, does this document require signatures? I'm not going to check that right now. So I'm going to click on Select File. I'm going to browse. I'm going to find that file that I have here. Auto convert. There you go. And then I'm going to click Start. And it's going to do its thing. It's going to tell you here, starting the application process. We're counting, right? Give it its time. Done. It gave me a checkbox. It gave me text fields. It gave me radial buttons. So if I go up here and I click on my preview, this is what it will look like. Click Save, Publish, Done. Yes, ma'am.
Christie timed it, it was a minute, 4 seconds, 90.
So if I stop talking during part of that time, I can stupid button.
Less than
It's ready to publish.
I save it.
She said a minute.
I save it, and then I determine where does it need to be saved that everybody can have access to it. Again, going back to, before we even started, we asked ourselves, how is this form going to be used, right? But we have a workable form right now. So if I saved a copy of this here, I can send it out through, and people can check the checkbox. They can type their name. They can put in their email address, and then they can choose prime rib, or they could choose vegetarian lasagna. Notice I can only choose one thing. And I can, and the only thing that I haven't done with this one here is I did not put the submit button. Submit is not an auto create field that you can have. But if this was just a form that all they need to do is, for example, our current and comment form, all they need to do is fill it out and save it. And then later on send it to Jen. Or maybe something that they fill out throughout the day. So that's all it took for us to be able to do this. That kind of work for you?
So would everybody be able to open that up then when they got it? No
Yep.
matter whether they had Adobe, Word Online, Windows 10, Lenovo
Yep.
versus.
So let me do this. I'm going to save this. Oops. Let me do this one more time because I've already put data. Oh, wait a second. Remember next time not to type over everything. Okay. So let's do this again here. Adobe DC. What do I click on? Where do I go? Am I going to put us over the minute mark? Where are I going to go to convert?
File,
File.
and you remember this, you want to create
Create.
form.
Create form. It's also listed on page 4 for you if you want to. Select the file. This time I'll actually pull it up in the same folder that you guys have here. Auto convert. Start. There we go.
Ready.
I didn't click on right. What did I do there? Oh, there we go. Set it fine. Okay. File save as. I'm going to put it where you guys have access to it. And I'm going to call it the auto convert. Close it out. All right, so let's test that. Reopen that link that I sent you that has the files in it. You should now see a PDF version of that file here. So employee holiday party RSVP auto convert PDF. If you click on that, see if that opens up and looks like what we just created. Let me know when somebody has it open.
The answer would be yes.
Pardon?
The answer would be yes, I can.
Good. So if we open it up, it should look like this. Now, I happen to have the full version of Adobe, so I would expect that mine would work on it. But for yours, does it look like this?
It looks like it, but you can't write it.
Yeah.
It doesn't let you click on it?
Open and browse.
Okay, for some of you, if you don't have Adobe Reader installed and set as the default, that's probably what's happening with it. Do you have it set as default?
I'll sit on the right now. Okay, and I just.
Yeah. Click on the little button.
Here.
See what, do me a favor here. If you open it up online, you have a little circle next to it. Rather than open it, download, and then just save a copy to your computer.
If you go open, it says open in browser and you hit it, then you can open it. Then
Okay.
it's type
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Okay,
So if you go over and it says, the button on the left says open in browser, if you hit that, then it's working.
okay, good. Thank you. Again, part of our job, and before we publish these out through, is to make sure that everything's set on the people's computers, that they're going to get it. We test it. Before you ever publish any kind of form, spend your time testing it every single way that you can possibly test it.
Does that mean though that we're back online? So the BCM's out and the community are back to using data?
Right now, yes. What we want to do in that case there is to say, okay, we want to have a folder for BCMs, a folder for mobile med monitoring. That these are all the templates. We keep those templates up to date. We just tell them, okay, take this, copy it down, save a copy of those templates on your computer. Now they don't have to use any data. It's just making sure then that we keep those templates up to date. So anytime that you're going to update a template, send out a reminder to people, tell them re-download, let us overwrite. You can make sure that they've got most correct things. Again, do we do that with all departments? You know, for example, Wayward, no, we don't do that. But with BCMs and mobile med monitoring, we have a lot of people that have to be able to work off just their laptop without data. So in that case there, we do want to put templates on their computer that they can, so that it can function offline.
I'm sorry, I'm just not understanding. If a template, are you even just for these random forms that are just occasional? Is that what you're?
If it's something that you say that they're going to use on a regular basis.
Right, that makes
So
sense.
then counter forms and things like that, yes.
But for these kind of things, they still have to use their online data. Would they do a template for just a?
There's different ways of doing it. And in that case, they're probably telling you, when you're doing this, make sure you're either at the office or you're on.
Okay.
No, don't do it when you're driving down the road using the data.
This motion too. The biggest thing that all the like mobile meds, everybody will be doing is the in Evolve, we'll have our assessment. So that will be the biggest thing that we'll need to do. And I'm thinking that's not going to be in Adobe.
Right, exactly.
So we're still going to.
Yeah, so this doesn't replace what's happening in Evolve. Evolve still does everything that's supposed to do. These are other forms that people are currently doing offline. Prime example, the daily log. Mileage reimbursement form. Mileage reimbursement form has been created to be an online form now that they could take, put a copy of that in their templates, so they have a copy of that on their computer, then they can just fill it out throughout the day. Again, I'm talking hypothetical, but they could fill it out on their computer throughout the day, save it, then at the end of the day, submit it. So that's a way of being able to do that. Again, another way of testing a form, I have the full version of Adobe. So I would expect that my form should work. Remember how I said you can test it in a browser? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up Chrome. I'm going to find my file here. I'm going to just I'm going to click that PDF file. I'm going to pull it across into this window. I'm going to drop it. That's another way of opening it up in a browser. So I can see, okay, yeah, it looks like it works. So anybody that's out there that doesn't even have Adobe Reader can still view it. Okay? So that's another way of testing it. You can do the same thing with Internet Explorer. Open up the browser and copy, grab and drag the file over into the browser window. It will open it up and show you what it will look like for the browser. That's another way of testing it. Again, how did we get Adobe to give us a checkbox? We inserted a what? A
Dingbat.
dingbat. We inserted a symbol, which is wingdings.
Well, wing.
Wingdings.
I figured when I did see the dingbat there, I'm like,
I was looking for a dingbat. How did I get a text field?
line.
I just drew a line with my underscore. How did I get the radio buttons? Which was from the dingbat.
Oh, dingbat.
From the wingdings. Okay, which again is a symbol. Okay. That's the quickest way of creating a form. Now, if there's additional things that I need on this form, for example, I said I wanted to create a button. Then I could go to my tools. I could prepare the form. Now I get my toolbar up here, and I can say I want to create a digital signature, and I could add that in there.
What if you wanted to make this form, so if you're sending it to Ashley, then it automatically goes to Ashley?
So that's a button. So I go here to, where's the button field? Right here. And I would click on button. I go down here, add the button, and go through those steps, which we'll cover a little bit later on here, but I'll create a submit button. So it created everything for me except for the submit. The only thing that I have to manually create is the submit button. Again, depending on what your form is, if your form is basically gathering text information, text fields, type it up into Word and let it auto-convert and create those things for you. It does a pretty good job of doing it. But again, the amount of time that you spend in creating the form will determine what Adobe is capable for. Now, let's back up before we even hit the creation of the form field. Before we even start with Word. Most of you have forms that you'll want to look at converting. Before you start typing it up and doing the converting on it, have a discussion with your group. Does the form function the way we need it to now? It may have functioned perfectly fine 5 years ago. It may have functioned perfectly fine a year ago. Does it gather the data that you need going forward? So make adjustments to that form. Figure out if we have a form that gathers up 95% of the data that we have, that we need, and then there's this second piece of people that people are filling in that gives the other 5%. Can we combine that together into one form so that they complete one form and submit it, and we get all that data together? Okay? So before you get too far down the road, have a serious conversation about the form itself. There's no good reason to recreate the past. If the past doesn't work for us today, it won't work for us tomorrow. If you see that there's things that the system is capable of gathering for you, don't be afraid to make adjustments to what you're currently doing. Now is the time to change. So when you move, it's a good time to do a little cleaning out and buying some new furniture sometimes. So this is the perfect time for doing that. Okay. Okay, going over to page 5. Making adjustments to fields. Again, I use this auto create field within here. And it did a really good job of lining things up based on where I could put it in Word. Okay? But if I needed to make adjustments on things, so click on, again, I have to be in the prepare form toolbar, so I'm going to go up to Tools. I'm going to open up the toolbar for prepare forms. That lets me make adjustments to it. Notice here, it's pulling name. So if I double click on this, it's going to open up a properties box on it. So within here, that's the name of the field. So if we import it into an Excel spreadsheet, that's going to be the header of the field. Tooltip. If we float the mouse over top of that field, so the user puts their mouse over it, we can give it, enter your name here. So more specific within the tooltip. There are other things that we can talk about. We can say it can be read-only information. It's required. You have to put your name. So we can do that. Orientation, you can slant it if you want to. So if you want to get kind of cute with your forms, you can do that. Appearance. I can put a border color on, or in this case here, it's set for no border. So that way when it prints out through, we have that line that we had created, and then the text just appears over top of the line. If we wanted the box to show on it, then I could turn the border color on. Say, okay, I want it to be a black border. I want the fill to be this, like blue. But kind of line to line around, so the line thickness, the line size, style on it. Font size. Notice this is set for auto. What that means is this. Some people have short names, and so it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. The font can be bigger. But we have somebody that has a rather lengthy name. We want it to fit within the box. It will actually make the font smaller so that it fits into it by setting it to be auto. Now you can set it. Say, I always want it to come in as 12. I don't care how long it is. You can set it for 12. So, but that's when you would use auto, is if you want it to self-adjust based on what they're typing in. Position is just where it is on the, so if you wanted to be really precise, I can click and drag these fields around, put it wherever I want. But if I want to say it has to be 4.95 inches from the left, it has to be 3.31 inches from the bottom. That's the options within here. I want it aligned left. I want it aligned center. I want it aligned right. If I want to put in the default value, in here I could say enter your name. Do we want it to check spelling? Well, do we want it to check spelling on a name field? Not nearly. Okay. Is this going to be multi-line? Since it's a text field, is it going to be just one line across? Or, for example, if we got down here to special requirements, do we want to have multiple lines going down through? So you click on multiple lines. Do you want it to scroll if it's long text? So in other words, when we do this special requirement, let's say we only allow for 2 lines to show, but somebody's really typing a lot, they have lots of special requirements. Then it puts the scroll bar in there. Okay. Allow rich text editing. You want them to be able to take whatever they put in there and you want them to be able to bold and underline and change colors and do all the things you want them to do that. You want to limit the number of characters in there. So the text field that I'm creating is a zip code. I want 5 characters. I only want 5 characters. I want more than 5 characters. Limit it to 5 characters. Actions. This is where we can say, once they do something, there's an action that is associated with that. We're going to get into that here in just a little bit on some things here. But we can say on this one here to play a sound, open a file, import data. So there's all sorts of actions that we can do within here. Notice one of them, submit form. So we'll use that property on a button to say submit form. You can format. Again, here it's, this needs to be, since it's a text field, we want it to be just a number. We're doing zip code. So we want them to only be able to enter numbers on it. We want everything that's put in there to be a percentage. So when they type in 5, it's 5%. We want it to be a date. We want it to be a time. Validations we're not going to get into today on it, but you can have a validated file. So is this a proper formatting for an email? There's calculations that you can do. So you can actually make your forms calculate. So I'm doing an order form for company clothes. So what do you want to order? How many do you want? What size do you want? And it's going to cost you this much with the tax and this much for it. So your total order is so much. You can actually create that within Adobe so it can do those ordering forms for you. Alignment. So if I go here, notice now this is red. Anybody know why that's showing up in red? No? But you're down the right track. I made a change in that. What change did I make? I said it is now required. Required fields will show in red. So if I preview this file, it's red. If I were to put a submit button on this, if I didn't have my name entered, it would come back and say you have to enter your name. Notice we put in that default text that says enter your name with the default value, so that's showing in there. So then I'm going to type over top of that and put in Jonathan Price. But notice what I did there. Yeah. You got to think, when you put in some things there, you may not want to do that. However, if I flip the mouse over it, then it will tell me here, this is the email. And then we just let that one there. Okay. Let's say that we'll pretend here for a little bit. Get back to my pair forms. Let's say this didn't line up quite right. Okay. Now I could spend all day trying to blow it up big enough to see exactly where it needs to line up and do my best to. No, that's not right. No, maybe it's not quite right there. Okay, well I got it on the line, but still off. Okay. I can highlight both boxes. Go to the top box of where I want things to line with it. Right click, align, distribute, and center. I want it to align vertically. So if these buttons here were, oops, change the size. Edit, undo. Trying to get it to move out of the way. It is not going to do it again. One more time. Anyhow, let me show you what you can do with that. Highlight the whole group. Right click on the top one, and you can say, I'll try that. So we can line it vertically. We can distribute it. So say between the top one and the bottom, make sure that it's even spacing between all of it. So we'll find out later on when we manually add fields. You don't have to be extremely exact in it. Get one where you want it to be, and then we'll use the alignment to straighten things up. I wish I would have known that before I created the mileage reimbursement thing, which has tons of text fields on it. I had to manually create all those text fields and then try to get it to look the same by blowing my screen up to 300% and dragging. Yeah, I should have seen that one before.
You're just choosing the top one on this, but if you've got the one that you like, you choose.
Could be the bottom one,
Yeah.
could be the middle, whichever one you right click on. Do that, okay? So that's how we can make adjustments with that. So once we have it done, again, you're going to save it as you file with it.
Jonathan,
Yes, ma'am.
can you, instead of starting from Word, can you start things in Excel and convert them to this?
You can. I haven't practiced it for this class I'm doing it, but I believe you can. All right. Now, Jen said, but you're trying to scare us from doing it manually. Not really. It's not that bad. So I'm going to close this up. Remember how we have this one here that it was set for shapes? Remind me about 10 minutes to give you guys a break, okay?
I just want to sit next to me at the party.
So I want to be able to get my checkbox to fit within here. I want my text fields to fit in with here. I'm going to create my own radial buttons. I'm going to create my own multi-line text field here. And I'm going to add a submit button into this. Okay? So this is what I created using shapes rather than symbols. So if I want to convert, what's my first step in converting a Word document or an Excel document, things like that? So I need to open up Adobe. And then File, Create. And again, I can do the PDF from File if I want to. All that does is it takes us through the same steps, but it forces you to save it before it goes on. I'm going to stick here with just Create Form for right now. Now what do? Select the file. I'm going to, again, this time I'm going to choose shapes. And then watch when it does the conversion here. So I'm going to click on Start. And watch what shows on the screen. So it's scanning the document. It's looking for places to where I have symbols so that it can auto-convert. We're letting it do its thing. Then it takes about a minute. What did it come up to and tell us? No new form field annotations were detected. It didn't see any symbols. It didn't see a wingding that was a square box or a checkbox. It didn't see underlines to create text fields. It didn't see any radial buttons. This one here, I'm going to create all from scratch. But it did convert that from Word into PDF. If I wanted to, I could simply take this, save it, and pass it out to people, say, okay, this is a good one for you to print and fill. You know, put it out on the website. Hey, you can print this off, you can fill it out by hand, and then walk over and hand it to Jen. So it's done the conversion from Word to PDF, for me in that case. Okay. Notice it did open it with my toolbar, prepare form. If it didn't, where would I find that? I'd click on Tools, and then I would find Prepare Form. Notice there's a lot of other things that we're talking about. We need to walk before we can run here, so we're learning on how to do the basics before we get into a lot of the different other things. We make sure that we've got a Prepare Form toolbar. What do I want here? A checkbox. Okay? So we want it to look kind of like this. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to click on this. I don't have to hold my mouse. Just pull it down and say, I want this to be here. Give it a name. Is it required? Do we want them to say whether or not they're going to come? Ashley, do you need to know if they're coming?
Yes,
Okay. Required field.
but wait a minute, then it would require them to check that box. Everybody's going, right? You have to
We
have a
need to
yes
not
or no.
attend.
In that case, yes, we would have to do a yes or no. So we'll do that. Not required. Properties.
I didn't do myself think that way.
Check this box if you are attending. Okay?
But I think people not attending are not gonna be filling out this form anyways. So I might have somebody fill out the form and not check that they are attending, and now I have to call them and say, are you attending?
Right. So you have to say, you know, is this just simply a confirmation? I have read everything that's above, and I agree with these statements. Yes. Well, why do I have to do that? Because sometimes we have certain rules and regs that require that we put some kind of confirmation, some kind of attestation that says, yes, I agree. I have read the above policy, and I agree that I have been provided access to this policy. Check. Sign, date. That's our attestation. So even though the choice is yes or there's no reason for you to fill it out, we may still put it as a required field on it. So we just make sure that yes, they did check it. We're going to mark that one as required for this. Appearance. Do I want a border color on this? So that means that around my little checkbox is going to be a black border around it. I created these nice little shapes that are in blue, right? I don't want a border. No color. Do I want it to fill in for color? No, no color for fill. Do I want an auto size on the checkbox? I want it to be a big old checkbox. Yes, I'm coming. Position, again, if we needed to get right down to the minute hundredths of an inch. Options. So it's a checkbox. Again, I could say, put a circle in it, put a cross in it, put a diamond, put a square, put a star. I want the check. The default export value. Remember, we're talking about exporting. So we want Ashley to, out of the 300 responses that she gets, for it to auto-import information to her spreadsheet. So we wanted to import the value of yes if they checked it. Okay. Checkbox is checked by default. No. We want them to physically check it so they can say, yes, I did select that I am coming. Again, no actions on this one here. So that's the checkbox. If I want to preview it, I can click on preview. The checkbox is going to look like that. I wanted the big one, so I want to make sure that they saw it. I can make it bigger if I wanted to. Okay. Name. What kind of field here? Text field. Where's my toolbar? I can't find my toolbar. Tools. Prepare form. There we go. Okay. Again, going across here, add a text field, check box, radio button, choice list, combo box, button, image file, date field, signature, barcode. So text field, one click on it. I don't have to click and drag. It's going to follow me. I want it to be right here. What am I going to give it for a name?
Name.
Sounds good. Is it going to be required that a person put their name on whether or not they're coming? Yes. Do we want to put a tooltip on this? Enter your name. This will also work with screen readers. So enter your last, then first name. Okay. So enter your first and last name. Whichever way, however you want to. It's required. Appearance. Do I want to have border color on this? No, because I created that nice little blue box, so I'm going to stick with that. I don't want to fill it. Do I want the size to be 12? No, because I've got so much space in there. Some people have really long names. So I'm going to set this one to be auto. Position, again, we're not going to get into that right now. Options. Want to be aligned left. Do I want to check spelling on somebody's name? Erie. Erie and Buffalo, stay away from checking spelling. I'm not sure. I think that's if I click on that, then they can't make adjustments to it for editing. That's a good question. I'm not going to allow them to do rich text formatting. It's not a multi-line. No actions with it. Format. Again, I don't have to change it. We're just allowing them to type in their name on it. There's no validation. Now, I can come here and I can say, okay, it needs to be only that high to fit within it, and I want it to be this wide. If I want the same type of box to be right underneath it, what's the easiest way I can do that? Copy paste. Right click, copy. Right click, paste. There's a new box. I'll throw it here. Now, do I want it to be called name? How do I get to properties? Do you remember? Close. Double click. Okay. Let's change this name to email. Tooltip. Enter your email.
Tooltips when you just hover over it. It just kind of gives you a heads up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Appearance. Again, I don't want colors on it. I want it to auto size in case somebody has an extremely long email address. Do I want to check spelling on an email address? So everything else is good. What's my problem right now with those two fields? They look horrible. So I can grab and start moving it around, or what could I do to make this a little easier? So just use your mouse, hold, drag a box around it, highlight both. Notice the top box, the one that we're basing our changes from, has little symbols around it. So if I right click on that one there, I want to say I want to align. I want to align it vertically. Now I need to pull it up just a little bit. Otherwise, it looks pretty good, right? Menu choices. Can one person have everything on the menu? No. Do I want to see all of these choices all of the time?
Yes.
Yes. So I want to use a radio button versus a checklist or a checkbox choice list. A choice list will do this. So let me just grab one here and throw it out here. The choice list would allow me to enter the values, and then when you see it in the full version of it, you have this one line and then a little arrow. You drop down the arrow and you choose, and that's the only thing that shows on it. So we don't want that. So I'm just going to delete that. I want a radio button, so I'm going to grab a radio button and say, okay, I want it basically kind of like right here, kind of centered on prime. That looks pretty good. And so I'm going to, up here, menu choice. So the radio button itself is going to be menu choice. Group. This is how we know to say you can only choose one thing out of this group. So we're going to give it a name of menu selection. It is going to be required because Ashley needs to know what to order. I could go down through here and click on add another button, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. We can go to the properties of this. Now let's say choose. How am I pulling a blank?
I think it's 2 L's.
Yeah, thank you. Choose your menu selection. Appearance. See how on this one here it is going to give a border color. Now, I could change this here and say, okay, I want it to be blue. I can get into the other colors and say, no, I really want it to be this blue here or that blue there. Or you can, if you know the settings for red, green, blue, you can choose that. We'll just make it this blue. Position, we're not too worried about here. Options. So radial button choice. When they click on this, we want it to say what? Prime red. So if they happen to click on this button, Ashley knows that they want prime red. Now, I can Control-C, copy, paste. Stop doing this without a mouse. And we'll throw that one over here. Double click. Menu choice on this one here is baked Alaskan salmon.
Jonathan, what would be the advantage of doing it this way since it's taking so much more time than the other version?
The drop down.
Yeah. Well, no, when you opened it up under symbols rather than shapes.
Depends on what you want it to look like.
So for this form, wouldn't you advise that this would not be the best way to go about it?
I could have been done with this one after a couple minutes.
Right.
if I didn't want to have the fancy little blue boxes and things like that. So yeah, I could have just done the auto create, or I could have used a combination of the auto create in adding in things too. So it goes back on, what do you want it to look like? How fancy do you want it to be? We know Ashley is a perfectionist, and she wants hers to be very creative. And so she may want to put the time in on.
And who your audience is, right? Because they have to enter this information or else it's not gonna work. And
Exactly.
where you're gonna submit it to.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to the initial question, how's the form going to be used? Who's using it? What's your audience? How are they going to submit the information to you? Okay. But I wanted to show you how you can do from scratch, basically. So we have the basic Word template. How do you add the fields in it? We're going to do another.
Can we take a break soon?
Yep.
Okay.
Tell you what, while we're doing this one here, let me do one more thing here, and then we'll break and I'll add the other ones in here. Okay. So I can double click. This one here is going to be creamy Cajun chicken. Okay, go ahead and take a break. Let's do 10 minutes. So let's be back here at 10:45. For those that are watching it remotely, they're going to end the recording for a minute, and then there'll be a part 2 of the recording.